𝒂𝑝𝘁𝗵𝗂𝗀, and I'm glad that you're with me to spend some time looking at one of my favorite subjects, interviewing. Did you know that the U.S. Department of Labor currently estimates that the average cost of hiring the wrong person at 30% of the individual's first year potential earnings? Do the math on that one and you'll see that if you neglect to weed out Mr. or Ms. Bad Hire with an annual income of $50,000, that little surprise package may end up costing your organization approximately $15,000. So what we're going to look at today is why so many people get hired only to end up leaving the organization in 6 months. Why? Because we're asking the wrong questions. So how do you ensure that you're hiring the right person? We need to ask the right questions. We need to see what is really there. Focus on who the person really is rather than on who we need this person to be. And then there's another common problem is that interviewers have a throw in everything but the kitchen sink approach when conducting interviews. They want to gain all kinds of information in a small amount of time, and it is not possible. Experts have shared with us that the key to a successful interview is ensuring that it is structured. When you don't plan the interview, it is unstructured. And an unstructured interview equals a bad hire. Why should you invest the time to learn how to conduct a behavioral-based interview? Very few managers and supervisors have honed this skill. Taking the time to become proficient in this area may help you to change the perspective of others in how they see you. And there are other benefits for you to learn behavioral-based interviewing. Over the course of my career, I've invested hours and hours of time interviewing thousands of human resource professionals, as well as managers and business owners, to find out how they conduct behavioral-based interviews in their organizations to hire the right people. I've taught this technique to professionals in various industries all over the U.S. Behavioral-based interviewing is not new. In fact, it's been around for quite some time and its popularity is growing. And of course, there are critics with this type of interviewing like anything else, and they say it's time consuming, and they're right. It takes practice, but you'll seem as if you have psychic powers when you really get going on this. Why? Because human beings are creatures of habit, and what a person's done in the past is most likely what she'll do in the future. So you ask a question, tell me about a time, or give me an example of when. And we're going to practice this in 3 areas: goal setting, adhering to deadlines, and dealing with conflict. So we want to ask how the situation's been handled in the past. Don't guide them to give you the correct answer. You want to phrase it, how did you handle it? And if you're like me, this next part might be challenging. Just listen. Don't judge. Let them talk. And when you're listening, you want to hear the star in the answer. And you may be wondering, what is the star? STAR is an acronym. S equals situation, T task, A action, R result. With goal setting, you can ask, tell me about a time when you set a goal for yourself and how did you handle it? For deadlines, you can ask, give me an example of when you had to meet a deadline and how did you handle it? And the last one, describe a situation when you got into a conflict with a coworker and how did you handle it? Now we're going to see a live seminar when participants are practicing this skill. And I chose this particular seminar because they struggled with the exercise. And I want to show you how to overcome some of the challenges now so that when you practice, you'll just keep getting better and better. I chose to use finger puppets to help them select occupations for their questions. And in this program, William picked a firefighter. Let's see how he, as the firefighter, answers the behavioral-based questions.
Okay, firefighter. Tell me about a time or give me an example of a situation when somebody finished that question.
How would you handle...
Okay, where's my little machine? How would you handle, how should you have handled, how could you have handled? Then you're into hypotheticals, and then he's probably going to tell you whatever he thinks you want to hear rather than what he's actually done. We want to know how he's actually handled it in the past.
Tell me about a time where you had to deal with stress.
I've been married for 10 years.
William didn't answer her question. And another thing they do is they answer with hypotheticals such as woulda, shoulda, or coulda. So what you need to do is get the star out of the answer. And A equals action, and that's what I want to do with you now. We're going to create an action plan in 3 steps. Step number 1, create a question for a position that you probably need to fill right now. No matter what industry you're in, you probably need a receptionist, but you can use this with any position. So think of a behavioral-based question for that job. Step number 2, look at your question and make sure it's phrased so that you're asking about what the person has done in the past. No hypotheticals. Don't let them tell you what they would have done, should have done, or could have done. You want to know what she's done in the past because that is most likely what she'll do in the future. And then lastly, step number 3, you need to practice this. And I'm going to show you what I do with participants in a live seminar to make sure they get the star out of the answer.
So number 1, I'm going to give you a minute or so. Tell your number 2s what you're going to work on. Number 2s, listen with all your heart. And on your mark, get set, go.
Opportunity to practice this and ask questions, and you'll be able to do this by going to my Michelle Motivate Me Facebook page and hit like. Once you hit like, you can then ask your questions. Many of my participants as well as other training professionals keep in touch with me and they keep the conversation going about a topic they're learning or teaching. I invite you to do the same. And if you've learned something, pay it forward, pass on the baton. I want to thank you for spending this time with me.